Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast, where we celebrate autistic contributions to society and culture.
Join us every Tuesday as we dive into everything from famous autistics in history to the pop culture, unique passions, and the special interests that define our community.
Whether you're autistic or love someone who is, welcome to Autistica. We're your hosts, Dr. Angela Kingdon, the linguistic autistic,
and Matt Lowry, licensed psychological practitioner. Join us as we explore the values, traditions, and identity of Autistica.
Episode 107, Anne of Green Gables is autistic. Well, hey, Matt.
Hey, Angela.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
We hate that question.
All things considered, in that the world is falling apart at the moment, the horrors persist, but so do I.
Yes. It's lovely. That's lovely. Are you finding anything to escape into? Do you have any new reads, new movies, new collections that are helping you?
I've actually been watching Creature Commandos on repeat, and the GI Robot Cheers for the Tin Man. I've watched it around 17 times, so it's it's a feel good episode for the ages.
I love that. Usually you post these things before me. I don't know if you saw, but about 364 of our listeners messaged me yesterday that Kanye has announced he is autistic.
I missed that. Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, abusive and fucking psychotic, but
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing, because again, while I generally accept a self-diagnosis, because the people who tend to self-diagnose as autistic do hours upon hours upon hours of research, and they say, "Oh yes, I've looked at all the papers, I've looked at all the videos, I've taken the tests 17 times, so I've come to the conclusion I'm autistic because I'm a bottom-up processor. I've done all the research." Then there are crackpots who say, "Yes, people don't like me, so I must be autistic." And I think
he might have been actually diagnosed, but this is my point in that. That doesn't mean there aren't very bad co-occurring conditions.
There can be, yes.
There are some crazy fucked up Italians. There is nothing that just because you are autistic prevents you from having other terrible fucking personality disorders.
There's also a lot of neurotypicals who mistake narcissism and a lot of, because that's the thing, neurotypicals are trained in this model of autism that's exclusively behavioral and exclusively this socially myopic thing. So I have been referred a lot of autistic people for therapy that are absolutely not autistic because they don't meet any of the other criteria. They don't have any interoceptive difficulties, any sensory stuff, it's just, they are incredibly selfish people. And the neurotypical evaluator says, yeah, that's autism. And so, there are very bad autistic people out there, because we are not a monolith, and there are good autistic people, there are bad autistic people. There are good people who are, missing a finger. There are bad people who are missing a finger. It's just how that works. It's just that there are a lot of neurotypical people who have the authority to diagnose autism that do it badly. Whereas, Chris Rock.
Badly.
Chris Rock went in for an autism evaluation, was mistakenly diagnosed with nonverbal learning disorder, which he has all the other traits of being autistic. So again, I think that was a misdiagnosis. But Kanye, if he is diagnosed with autism, I believe that was a missed mark based on literally everything I know about him.
I can see that. My nephew just got assessed. I don't even. They took money and called it an assessment. It was very funny.
I think that's the way to quantify that experience. Yes,
money was exchanged, and a document called an assessment was created in exchange for the money. But so the doctor goes through all the criteria for autism and is like,
from the DSM.
Brady has this, Brady from the DSM, right? Yeah. But that's fine. Okay, if we're diagnosing that, sure. Then she goes through all the criteria for ADHD. And then she says, he clearly meets all the criteria for both. And then she says, based on this, it looks like he has more of the like traits of ADHD.
Because you can't have both.
Right. And I'm like, does she think you can't have both? Because she doesn't acknowledge that both exist. So I'm like, I'm wondering, because she didn't say he had 100% of both. She clearly goes one by one. He has 100% of both. So how is 100% of one more than the other? And I was like, I don't understand the conclusion. You're like, cats are animals, dogs are animals, therefore bicycles.
This is where I have a very controversial opinion that autistic people should be able to diagnose autism exclusively.
I really agree.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Neurotypical people, again, I've heard the argument, I don't have to be depressed to diagnose depression, but that just shows the ignorance about their understanding of autism. Autistic people are better able to find other autistic people because, again, when we go to a neurotypical, the neurotypical says, man, you ain't one of me, but I don't know what you is. So they throw a million tests at you and then come up with a weird conclusion anyway.
Weird conclusions.
And autistic people, we say, well, we tend to do this and this and this. And the person says, oh, yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. I recently did an eval for someone with a professional for a parent, and the professional was under the impression that they were neurotypical. It was a funny day. And by the end
but
of
I
it,
do that.
Yeah,
Wait, but
yeah.
but I do that. Maybe he does that because I do that. Oh yeah, he does that because you do that, my friend. Yeah, he sure does.
By the end of it, they got a lot more understanding about each other. The family became closer, and we welcomed them all into Autistica. It was a delightful time. So this is the thing: the people who are good at diagnosing autism might not be as neurotypical as they think they are. The neurotypicals tend to be very bad at diagnosing autism. So,
right, they're like, this person's an asshole, they must be autistic.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, because when the neurotypicals say that autism is overdiagnosed, they see the people diagnosed by people familiar with autism and they say, that's not what I would do. That person hasn't once given an inappropriate Nazi salute. I can't see how they're possibly autistic.
Right.
Yeah. And
oh my God.
That's the thing that gets me about this.
So one of the things like we've talked about a lot is how we will often connect with characters that have autistic traits or represent autistic culture. And we're like, ooh, yummy. This connects with me. This feels like family. This feels familiar. And I want to talk today about a cult classic that I think you will find after today's discussion. The reason this book is so deeply beloved is that autistic people, particularly autistic women, found it and clung to it like a lifeboat. And that is Anne of Green Gables. No, also that same.
Yes.
This is the OG of young adult fiction. This is the way of our people.
We really do need to cover Twilight at some point because
we do need to. And also, Twilight has an interesting. As somebody who helps people write books, it is one of the few massively successful self-published books that started off as self-published. So a lot of people come to me and they're like, "I have an idea for a book, but they can't find a publisher and they give up." She was like, fuck it, I just want to write this thing. She self-published it.
That's not what a neurotypical does. So that's
right.
Yes.
So I have an amazing client now who found us from our knitting episode. And
from Hunter Hammerson's.
From Hunter's, yes. Fanzo Hunter. And she's like, I have a thing I want to write and I'm going to write it and we're going to find a publisher and I'm going to write it my way. And if it ends up being self-published, it'll be self-published, but I'm doing my way. And I'm like, yes.
Right or wrong, it will be written.
Yes, it will be written and it will be written my way. And that is sort of what the author L.M. Montgomery, we'll talk about her in a minute. That's sort of what she did. It was a different time in
Ellen Montgomery is
publishing.
the one who created the Gables.
The Gables. So, what do you know of what do you know about Anne of Green Gables? Give us your
I was
knowledge base. You are not
I
the
was telling
target market.
Yeah, I was telling Simon that my understanding of Anne of Green Gables is that she is an autistic redhead who lives in the country, flies around in a balloon, has a pet
Oh,
crocodile.
oh,
Uh, I could be
took a
mistaken on
turn.
this.
You got the red hair and the country part right.
Oh, okay.
Is
Well,
that all you've
uh,
got? What else you got?
I think that that's it. I think that
Have you read it?
there
Have you
are
seen
gables
it?
involved. I'm not
I
sure what
don't
a
know what the
gable is,
Gables are. I
but
don't know what a
they
Gable
are
is.
green.
Yeah. Yeah, and she is of them, apparently.
Of the gables.
She's of the Gables.
Yeah.
So the first
I
thing
picture when I see Anne of Green Gables, I picture
mm,
her surrounded by Kermit the Frog dressed as Clark Gable.
oh my god. Okay, that's not it. But um and the first thing you have to know about her, like all good heroines of young adult fiction in my book, is she is the quintessential outsider.
Ah,
Um
yes.
and so she carves out her own space, but she is a character that does not fit in and isn't
Yeah.
going to fit in, and we know that early on. Here is one of the quotes. Go ahead and give us a little reading.
It's all very well to read about sorrows and imagine yourself living through them heroically, but it's not so nice when you really come to have them, is it?
Right. She
Yeah,
has
and that's
many
the
a
truth.
sorrow. She has many a sorrow. And she is super emo. And I think this is another reason why our people connect so much with her. She's always told she's too much, too
Yeah.
talkative, too dramatic, too imaginative.
Very gross.
And yes, exactly. And so I'll give you another little quote from Anne that you will start to feel her tism vibes with this one.
There's such a lot of different ands in me. I sometimes think that is why I'm such a troublesome person. Ouch! Internalized ableism.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that and everybody is happy to hold that up for her, but she is also super creative, focused on joy and creating imaginary worlds, and
Oh,
she spends a
we do
lot of
that.
time in her imagination, which you hear about. And this is our third kickoff quote, and then I will give you some background on this, but I just want you to know the character of Anne a little bit from the inside.
It's been my experience that you can nearly always enjoy things if you make up your mind firmly that you will.
Have you just tried suffering? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but this was another time. So, Anne of Green Gables, as I mentioned, it was written by a Canadian author. We're going to talk a lot about the role of Prince Edward Island in this book. That is where the Gables be. But
Ah,
Lucy Maud Montgomery, and she published this book in 1908. So,
oh
pretty
wow.
interesting time. Has some parallels to stuff going on today. It's the Industrial Revolution. The whole world is sort of being turned upside down, and people aren't sure where they fit in it. Uh, Lucy
That was
was,
a big transition time for autistics because I
oh,
often tell people that humans existed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years before modern society. And we adapted pretty well because we were farmers and we counted chickens and milked the cows and rocked in rocking chairs and whittled and had a relatively quiet life. But ever since the Industrial Revolution, everything become very, very chaotic and complex, and
mm,
we are not good with this. We want our quiet
mm-mm.
life back.
Yeah, that's so true. And the term autism was actually, I mean, it was wrong. It was completely different set of symptoms, but it was 1911. So right around this time, the word starts being incorrectly tossed around, and we've been
I
incorrectly
love
tossing it
that.
around for 100 years.
I love that when you bring up how it was incorrectly used, there was a garbage truck backing up
Yeah,
at,
there
just as you were
is.
talking. That that
Yeah,
is the
because it
best.
is.
Yeah,
If you
that
can't
is.
hear that because it gets edited out, I am today in Brooklyn, New York, and it is, there's a lot of things happening outside my window that are very distracting. I keep having to look at them.
Wait, again, this is the thing about the modern world. The modern world is very distracting. It's very overwhelming. This is one of the reasons why a novel like Anne of Green Gables is so appealing, because there's a lot of autistic people that gravitate towards turn of the century fiction like this,
Mm.
or a Little House on the Prairie, or
Oh,
these
yeah.
these things where life was much less complex, and we want to see how this stuff worked, because the current world is
Mm.
very overwhelming.
Yeah, there's a great Taylor Swift line about that where it's from Tortured Poets, and she's like, what decade would you live in if you could live in any decade?" And she basically says, "I'd live at the turn of the century, but without all the misogyny and hatred toward women and
Yeah,
like
that would be a
slavery for
problem.
women." Yes, so she's like, "Yeah, so maybe not, but less complex, but also maybe worse, but also maybe better. Who knows? We don't know." Not here to solve those problems, here to talk about the main character in Anne of Green Gables, Anne Shirley. She is imaginative and talkative and emotional. She is also an orphan.
Oh,
And I think, and I don't even know if that word is appropriate, but I do think a lot of us feel like orphans. It's part of,
yes.
I think, wrong planet syndrome. And
Yeah.
I literally every day when I was growing up, wondered if my parents were really my parents or if I had been switched at birth in the hospital or something. I
Yeah,
haven't been,
me
but
too.
I was right because it's like I don't fit in here. So the
Yeah.
orphan thing really works for. I was obsessed with Annie.
Yeah.
I over and over and over had to sing that song, maybe, where little orphan Annie's like, maybe my parents are playing piano. Like, maybe my parents are paying the bills. What are they doing? Where are my real parents? So,
You
anyway,
want to imagine having parents that are like you and understand you.
mm, 100%. So Anne gets sent to live with not a mom and dad, but aging siblings. So Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert, and she's sent to Prince Edward Island. And they had plans, and oh my God, I also had this. They thought they were adopting a boy because they had this farm, they had too much work. And so they're like, we will adopt a boy and he will work on the farm. And they
We shall
end up
buy
with
a
Anne.
farmhand.
We shall buy a farmhand, which I think is what they did. And then, like, with me, my dad had a car business. And so then he had two girls. And then when I came along, they're like, well, I hope we finally have a boy. And I always felt like a
Ouch.
mistake for not being a boy. And
Ah.
so Anne always felt, and that wasn't on my parents. I was just like, wish I liked cars. Like they would probably like me more and find me less annoying and tell me to stop singing all the time.
My father wanted me to be a hunter and a fisher,
Oh,
and yeah, I was not the child that he requested.
mm. Well, this was not the child they requested. And Anne kind of blows into their life and throws everything up. Like, this is not what they were going for. And I think that similarity is part of where the connection is. Book was an instant bestseller. It's so, just to give you an idea, like today, to make the New York Times bestseller list, you need to sell about 30 to 50,000 copies in your first month.
Wow, that's a lot.
This book sold 20,000 copies in the first 5 months.
Wow.
But at the time, it was like a mega smash.
That's
So
still a lot of
obviously,
books.
yeah, no book talk either, right? Like, how did people find out about it?
Yeah. Yep.
So this was, there were sequels, there were adaptations, there's a Disney movie, there's, you told me there's like an anime thing coming out soon.
Yeah, yeah. In the next few months, there's going to be a brand new anime adaptation, which, again, I find really impressive that there's enough of a Japanese following from a Canadian novel that they really wanted to adapt it
Oh
to the
no,
Japanese language.
the number one market for Anne of Green Gables is Japan.
Fascinating.
It is the number one. And if you go to Prince Edward Island, you met the one thing you knew about Anne was her red hair.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to Prince Edward Island. You and Emmett could both get Anne of Green Gables wigs, and
I'm
it
down for
will
that.
be you and 50,000 Japanese school children, mostly girls, in red-haired Anne of Green Gables wigs. I have done the tour.
That's fantastic.
No one gets out of there without buying an Anne of Green Gables wig or seeing a whole lot of Japanese people. Every single Japanese school child knows this book. It
That's
is part of
fantastic.
the school curriculum. So Anne of Green Gables had been translated into 36 languages.
Wow.
It is all around the world, but nowhere is it bigger than Japan. And it's like, it's basically like Winnie the Pooh big, like as big as like how many people don't know Winnie the Pooh in America? Like
Yeah.
everyone knows Winnie the Pooh, and in England, where I believe that book is from, like that's what Anne of Green Gables is in Japan. And
Wow.
no one would not know it.
That's neat. I like that.
Right?
We have our people have a marked influence on a culture. I like that a lot.
Like a whole
What
country,
is it that the
huge.
Japanese love about Anne of Green Gables?
I don't know. We're going to talk about it. I don't know if it's, they definitely connect specifically with Anne in very much the ways autistic people do. Obviously, there's a huge following of anime. In general, many autistic people like anime. I don't think we've done an episode on it, but
We need to.
we've done adjacent things. And I have heard from my friends on TikTok, Jesus, parasocial relationships. I haven't heard anything. I have watched TikToks from strangers that I don't know.
Our friends,
They're not my friends.
Yes.
But I have watched TikToks that strangers have made that are autistic, talking about all the ways Japanese culture is ideal for autistic.
Yes,
Minds.
yes. Well, and that's an interesting thing that I've been talking about with a lot of people. That it seems like perhaps there was some weird mutation that caused Europeans to become primarily neurotypical, but there might be, in other cultures, a higher proportion of autistic people, and their
Oh, there are. We've
respective
studied
cultures,
this.
and their respective cultures are more autistic friendly because of this, higher proportion of autism.
Yeah.
So it seems like
it's hereditary, right? So
yeah.
There's gonna be higher percentages, but we know like the Netherlands has a huge percentage. Iceland has a higher percentage than most places. And in that, I talked about this because I found some of the numbers in that dimensions of autistic culture when we talked about the cultural dimensions.
Yeah.
That Garrett Hofstetter was measuring country by country. He didn't know anything about neurotypes and wasn't talking about neurotypes. But obviously, autism is hereditary. And so it's gonna, in certain countries, there will be higher percentages.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like Eurocentric colonization and all this stuff, because it really seems like Europe in general has this neurotypicality that does not understand other countries, does not understand other cultures, does not understand other neurotypes, and wants to stomp it all out. And it's very, very frustrating.
Colonizers,
Yes,
those who colonized countries, like when you think about like Spain and like that, there is a power benefit
there is.
in colonizing to driving out minorities and
Yeah.
subjugating minorities. So I think there is the genetic factor that there are more neurotypicals, but there's also the colonizing factor that's
Yeah.
like, because we're still a minority, even places where there's more of us, we're looking at like 2% diagnosed instead of 1% or 3% instead of 1.5%. Obviously, that's just diagnosed, but still.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Prince Edward Island, go visit Green Gables Heritage Park. I stayed in an Airbnb, not an Airbnb, it was a youth hostel there that did not have hot water. That was my first cold shower ever.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, it was, and you had to hold the string so that, because you couldn't watch, so you'd have to, like, when you were putting soap in your hair, you were just cold, and then you pull the string to get the water, and then the water was cold. I have very
I
cold memories of this
I
place.
I would just be smelly.
Yeah,
I would choose to be smelly.
I think that would have been a better choice. I showered once and only once when I was there, but
Yeah, yeah,
would not repeat that. It was an error. But
yeah.
you can go live in this. Yeah. Okay. So Lucy Maud Montgomery, was she the inspiration for Anne? Potentially, I say yes. Let's see. She
Well,
was
that's the
born.
thing about an author. If an author
Yes.
writes a book, everything comes from that person's brain,
Right.
presumably, unless they're just, I don't know, copying somebody else's book. But
It's true. But here we go. Okay, so she was born in Prince Edward Island, obviously knew it well. She was born in 1874. So when she wrote this, she was like in her 30s ish, maybe 35, 40, something like that. Her mother died when she was almost 2. So
oh,
she was
that's
still a
sad.
baby. And her father sent her to her grandparents to be
Instead of
raised.
raising her, wow.
Right, which I think was a thing at the time. And they were apparently like very strict, and she was very lonely and didn't fit in. And they were not unlike the family that Anne goes to live with. And the only way she found to survive was through her own imagination. And she had one of those like hyper imaginations where she like couldn't stop imagining.
That's very common for our people.
What is that called? I don't have that. I'm aphantasic. I can't do any of this. I just write books.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I just
It's
always call it a very active imagination because
like,
we friends, family, and fictional characters we relate to those that we live in our head. And if you're autistic and you came up with a lengthy young adult novel series inside your head with a number of characters, a number of situations, lots of imaginary worlds, and it just never came out on paper, welcome to the club because I did that myself. So
so
at some point, my epic superhero series will come out, and it will be entirely set in the '90s because that's when I
meanwhile,
imagined
by
it.
the way, I just started writing poetry at 7, with my first poetry being my first book of poetry being called, oh God, what was it? Something very inappropriate for my age. I wrote very age inappropriate poems and just wrote
With
books
big
and books
words
of
or
them.
with sexual situations.
No, 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 no. It was lifelong chances. But I was
Oh,
7.
oh, at 7.
Lifelong chances. What does
Wow,
this mean?
that's
What
that's
does
a
this mean? Why did I need lifelong chances? I don't know.
wow. The wizened 7-year-old opining about her entire life
Yeah.
of seven
Yeah.
years.
Then I wrote this song. I think I was like 8 or 9, but it was in that era. That was like, if you don't like what you see in the big old mirror, if you don't like what you feel in the bottom of your heart, change your ways, change your life, do the things you think are right, change the times, what people say, make things the way you want today. I,
That's a song that is destined to be set to a montage.
It's
So
terrible. I don't know why. I was very focused on, I don't know, self help at 7. Well, maybe I do know why.
this is the way.
Anyway, here's what Lucy Maud Montgomery said. This is a quote from her.
I have always lived in a world of imagination, but I kept it shut up within myself for fear of ridicule.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah. A fear
Yeah.
of perception, fear of rejection.
Yeah. And that is huge for Anne as well.
Yeah.
But Montgomery had this thing that would happen to her. She called it the flash. And she said it would sometimes happen in nature where she would go into this state of emotional clarity and sensory ecstasy.
Oh, that's nice.
What do we call it?
We call it the flow state.
Yes. So she wrote about it. She's like, the craziest thing happens. And I have all these like emotions and everything's so thrilling. And she feels connected to everything. And she's filled with joy and she can't contain herself. And yeah. So glimmers out the
Glimmering all over the
wazoo.
place.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
So,
what gives me the glimmers?
oh no,
Advertising.
breaks. Oh, great. Me too. I forgot about that. Let's go take a break.
Hey, clinicians. Are you looking for an affirming way to assess autism and ADHD that bridges the gap between self-identification and formal testing? NeuroPebble's diagnostic assessment training for master's level clinicians is here to help you confidently navigate assessments. This course prioritizes lived experience and understanding the nuances in the diversity of traits. You can even get 7 CEUs if you need them. Start today at bit.ly/neuropebble and take the first step towards transforming your practice. At NeuroPebble, every idea is a pebble that paves the path to a more neurodivergent, affirming world. Go to bit.ly/neuropebble to learn more.
Okay, we are back. We have been talking about just giving some background. Apparently I'm too excited and I had too much background. But we're talking about Anne of Green Gables. I've talked about how the author, Maud Montgomery, matches a lot of Anne's traits of highs and lows and her social struggles to fit in and her escaping into her land of imagination and finding solace and glimmers in nature. So lots of parallels between these two. But now I want to jump in and talk to you about Anne herself, because that is the main attraction. Everybody loves a little Anne. She has been a mainstay in autistic culture and with autistic people, whether they know it or not. And I want to start by talking about her spins, Matt.
Oh, yeah. Spins, a special interest that autistic people tend to have, and neurotypical people look at you funny when you talk about them.
Right. Well, people did look at her funny. They really did not enjoy her info dumps. She gets in trouble for constantly talking and going on, and she gets really excited. She memorizes entire passages of poetry, and then uses those passages of poetry in conversations.
Of course.
What do we call that?
Echolalia is our friend. We have to info dump entire words, sounds, and phrases that we know from the things that we love.
She becomes obsessed with things to the point of imitating them, and she goes through this whole Lady of the Lake reenactment, which if you have not seen, you must see.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes, so she's very much a romantic for nature, and she has this attention to detail about things in nature. I am an avid indoors woman, so I feel like I did not connect with this part of the book and I would read through it quickly. But she notices all these details, which I'm very not visual and I very much don't like the elements of the outside, but she notices everything. And I don't know, maybe this is some sort of
bottom-up data processing.
Bottom-up processing, but also in terms of Lucy Maud Montgomery, like appropriating from Native American culture. But Anne goes around and renames everything. So there's like mica in the water of one of the lakes. And so she names it the Lake of Shimmering Waters or Lake of Shining Waters, because like she could see the reflections from the little mica chips. And so she makes up all of these names. Here is another quote from Anne about this.
I insist upon your calling this place by its rightful name, Barry's Pond, instead of that ridiculous Lake of Shining Waters.
Lake of Shining Waters always getting in trouble. Better. Well, yeah, what is better, Barry's Pond or Lake of Shining Waters?
Yeah, who is Barry and why did he get to name a pond?
Yeah, fuck off. No,
she was right. Fuck off, Barry.
and your pond. And so people were always yelling at her by doing these super creative things. And then that did
Oh,
not make her talk about it less. It makes her talk about it more. And then she loses track of time. There's a scene where she forgets about food on the stove. She forgets to do a chore for Marilla, the like mom sister, and then gets in very big trouble because when she is in hyper focus, she makes these honest mistakes but
yeah.
forgets basic tasks.
Because we tune out the outside world because we're in the inside world. We are inside our heads and the outside
The
world
good
ceases to
place.
exist. Yeah,
We're in the
exactly.
good place. Exactly. um so Anne struggles with chores, which of course is the whole reason they got this child.
Yeah, yeah.
um
Yeah, like we bought a boy for a reason, and stop being a human and start being a workhorse.
and really hates transitioning from things. And when she is in
Transitioning is the
something,
worst.
she doesn't want to stop it. Like,
Seriously.
right. And so I want to talk a little bit here about what did they used to call it? Oppositional defiance
Ah,
disorder. What
yeah.
was that era? The 90s when we were diagnosing
Well,
everyone with
eh,
that?
eh, if you have melanin in your skin, it's still present day, but
Oh, oh. Well,
yeah, a lot of
Anne would
autistic
have
black
been
kids are diagnosed
diagnosed
with
with
that
that.
instead of autism.
Still? That's
Yeah,
not a real thing, is it?
it's not, but again, neurotypicals think it is.
Oh. Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
thought we got over that decades ago. No. Okay.
I wish.
That's upsetting. So,
Yeah.
uh, so Anne basically, if you ask her to do something and she's doing something else that is more enjoyable, she doesn't do the not fun thing you asked her to do.
No kidding. I wouldn't either. Like, I'm having fun. I'll do it later. And
Right.
adults do not like that. Neurotypicals hate it.
Right. So this is seen as a personal failing, like she is a
Ah,
bad person.
because it's
And
because executive functioning is somehow linked to morality.
yeah, and
Don't you hate that?
then she thinks of herself as a bad person because of it.
Raise your
So
hand, listeners, if this applies to you.
put a
Just
finger
kidding. This is a
down.
pre-recorded podcast. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
put
Well,
a
we
finger
can't
down.
actually hear you or see you, but thanks for trying. But yes, this is
Uh,
the thing. It's happened so often to us.
So here's her quote on this that made me sad.
I forgot to put the cover on the pudding, and the pudding fell in. I shall always think that the pudding is a metaphor for life.
So think of it
Oh,
like a
God.
souffle. So she didn't
Yeah,
put the cover on, and then the souffle collapses, just like her life. She forgets to put the cover on things, and then her life collapses.
yeah. And that's the thing. We need so this is the big thing about the internalized ableism because we are judged externally for our failures rather than, acknowledged for the intense internal work that we must do to succeed. We put in a lot more work than most people because we're constantly dealing with a lot more data and a lot more distractions, a lot more other stuff. So every time we have a success, we put a lot more work into it than most people, and it's never acknowledged.
I mean, she has like basically renamed all the natural features in all of Prince Edward Island in her little neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's no credit for that. Like that's not school. Her hyper focus on all the awareness about nature and all the poetry she's written about it and the books and the characters she's made up, you get no credit for that. But when
No.
she avoids her schoolwork,
Yeah.
she gets in trouble for that. But there's
They
no
only see
credit on the other side.
what you don't do.
Right. Right. And there's certain things that count as work and certain things that don't. But
Yeah.
because we get requested frequently, and I know it's on our list to do one of our Friday advocacy episodes on school options,
Oh yeah.
unschooling, homeschooling, free schooling. But like again, they are kind of like us. They suffer from the unschooling people, I think, suffer from bad PR because I think it
Yeah.
just sounds like eat popcorn and sit on your couch.
Instead of a low
But
demand lifestyle.
right, but Anne was beautifully unschooled. Like she knows more about nature than I do. She
Yeah.
knows more about writing than most people her age do. Like it's
Yeah.
not like she wasn't learning. She was learning all day. She was learning 50 times more than what she would have learned at school, but she didn't do a worksheet on 2 plus 2.
Because
That
worksheets
wasn't
suck.
interesting because
Yeah.
worksheets suck. So I don't know if unschooling was the right idea. I've heard some people call it free schooling. Like I think it's like a bad name for a much better way of learning, which is like deep focus on stuff you're interested in, which of course is going to cross over many subjects. You're going to have to read. You're going
Yeah.
to probably have to naturally do math to do
Well,
things with the water. Like,
and again, this is how kids for thousands of years learned how to do things until the Industrial Revolution, because factories set up factory towns and factory schools because they wanted to train children to sit in place for 8 hours a day so that they would be conditioned to sit in place 8 hours a day as adults to work in the factories. So factory schools changed the dynamics of education and industrialized education, and now people think that if it's not industrialized education, it doesn't count as real school. But doing this whole free schooling unschooling thing, that is the natural way that humans learned for thousands of generations before that. Industrial
and
education is only in the past 200 years.
And if you are autistic or have an autistic kid, probably the stuff that you've learned that you remember, that's how you learned it.
Yeah.
Like you probably don't actually remember sixth grade civics class lessons as much as things that you got into and learned yourself.
Yeah, trial and error, independent investigation, independent study, looking and reading the entirety of the encyclopedia, like
Did
normal
it.
children.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did it.
and
Been there.
instead of the weirdos who are forced to learn by osmosis. So
Yes. So even though we like the name Lake of Shining Waters better, Barry's
yes.
Pond does belong to the Barry family. And in the Barry family is a young woman named Diana, who is Anne's kindred spirit.
Oh, that's
Why?
nice.
Because Anne tells the stories from her imagination and the poetry that she writes, and Diana does the appropriate thing of listening.
Oh, good for her.
Yay. So they definitely have a relationship where I would say Diana is probably like more neurotypical in this relationship we're going to talk about, but she is open to the info dumping in ways that people who love us can show their love for us. So this is
Oh.
what Anne says about that.
Kindred spirits are not so scarce as I used to think. It's splendid to find out there are so many of them in the world. That's very optimistic.
Is she also becomes friends with what I would say is an autistic friendship, and this is with Gilbert Blythe. And initially, she rejects him. So Gilbert Blythe, and I want you to see if you can help me track this down. He insists on calling her carrots.
Is that because of her red hair?
Yeah, and she
Fascinating.
hates it, but he just can't. He like can't not call her that. It like sticks in his head. And I don't know if that's a thing, but like I've definitely seen other neurodivergent people do this where it's like not to call them that and that it makes them mad, but also carrots, because obvi, you should
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
This is a term of endearment, and I will be calling you always.
yeah, exactly. So it's awkward. It's not an easy friendship like Diana. It doesn't go through typical scripts, but what they share is a deep intellectual connection,
Oh,
and they no small talk. They go straight into their special interests.
oh, that's nice.
And
I like that.
so, yes, so that friendship with Gilbert is, I think, one of the real, should we say, like hopes and dreams. Autistic people, many of us who at this age had no friends.
Yeah, this is a big thing, and this is a big thing that causes a lot of trauma, because there 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 is this some unspoken thing among a lot of children, and when they find someone who wants to talk about big stuff, they shun us, they don't like us, and it causes a lot of complexes. There was a wonderful meme that it floats around, and they say, "Hi, uh, uh, about this child in kindergarten talking about his friend who doesn't speak English," and it says, "Yeah, I really love this friend because he doesn't speak English, so we skip all the talking and get straight to the karate."
Oh
So
my God, I love that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
but
we talk about
this
this
is oh yeah,
in the Only Murders episodes,
yeah,
which we have to do the new season, but
we do.
that deep talk friendship, I feel like most people can't handle. And Only Murders, those are adults, right? But
Yes.
when you are a kid, like when I was Anne's age, I really wanted to talk about these very deep existential topics. And there was just not a lot of 7-year-olds that were into that.
That is why we often form what neurotypicals call age inappropriate friendships,
Mm.
because we sit and talk to the librarian for hours on end.
My
Or,
best
yeah.
friends were the librarians at Wallingford Public Library. Thank you for saving my life, reference librarians.
You know what also saves our life? Sponsorship.
Let's hear from one of them right now, and we'll come back and talk about Anne. Hey, everybody. This is Angela, and I have an incredible opportunity to share with you from friend of the pod and one of my favorite authors that I've had the opportunity to work with, Becca Lori Hector. Becca's book, Always Bring Your Sunglasses, is a heartfelt and honest look at life through the lens of an autistic adult, filled with insights, personal stories, and a heck of a lot of empowerment. And she is offering it totally 100% free to our listeners. All you have to do is visit alwaysbringyoursunglasses.com. That's alwaysbringyoursunglasses.com for a free copy of Becca's book. All right. We are back. We have been talking about Anne of Green Gables. We talked about her special interests, bonding, special interest bonding, which is the best way to make friends. Some of her executive functioning and maybe demand avoidance challenges because of her hyper focus. But in there somewhere, I was talking about how her special interest being poetry, she would memorize books and books of poetry, and then she would use them as scripting, as like the way she would answer questions, because she already had those answers prepared. So that's a good way. So I want to talk.
This is the way.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about echolalia and
Echolalia.
Some of her. Say it again.
Echolalia.
I hear you. She will often repeat lines from books or in real life. And I am grabbing you a quote. So I feel like you might have an Emmett story that goes like this, but you ask her a question and she would answer. Here's a typical Anne answer.
My life is a perfect graveyard of buried hopes. Oh, hell.
Right. So that is not her. That is not related to the question. The question might be like, do you want dinner?
Yeah.
And then it is your job to identify where this comes from. So, or what this means. And
this is the thing, especially my son's a Gestalt language processor.
I was just going to say, I think this is Gestalt language processing, right?
Yeah, because that's the thing. Most people access a series of words with independent meaning that are strung together in a sentence in response to things. But for Gestalt language processors and for people who have like echolalia and this kind of stuff, it responds when you say something, it activates an obscure area of the brain that where we store all of our quotations. And for instance, if I was to ask Emmett about, hey, did you take the trash out? He might repeat a line from Peppa Pig. It says, oh dear, this is such a complicated task. or something along those lines. And
Right.
he goes through the entire script, and his scripts are shorter and more concise these days. But at one point, he would go through a 15-minute spiel every time something like that tickled his brain. And this is a very, very common thing. And if you understand the references, this is one of those things where if people haven't watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, there is an episode, I believe, season 6, Darmok. It explains all of this. These aliens speak only in metaphor, and if you understand the source, you understand what they're saying. It invented meme speak, with Philip J. Fry saying, "Take my money," or something along those lines. We autistic people love
I
meme
feel like
speak.
that happens in Community a lot too, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, because it's written by an autistic person. So
right. So there's that. Go watch that. I'm going to put that in the show notes if you don't
Community is
know that.
fantastic.
So I have to talk about this because my brain is making me talk about it. But oh god,
which is exactly on topic. Go on.
All my TikTok friends, not friends. This is a frenemy. I have to talk to you about a frenemy.
Fuck you, frenemy. Go on.
So there is a character who it's an actual person, but it's a character from the Love on the Spectrum. Abby.
Oh,
Do you know Abby?
Is she the ABA therapist? No, it's Caitlin.
No, that's Caitlin. That's a whole nother frenemy. But she might just be moved into enemy territory. So, okay, so Abby is the one very often. We've talked about her and her boyfriend Dave. They went to Africa. She's super into Lion King.
Oh, nice.
And Disney is one of them for me, but it's like Broadway in general, but singing. Like if you see a warthog, you are going to have to go through that whole script.
Of course.
And then you have to sing the whole song.
And people are doing that as we speak, because
right.
I won't take up your time singing it now, but yes,
right.
Go on.
So, and you have to sing it to the end. And then Abby has a rule, which I wholly support and understand, which is other people can't sing it too.
Yeah.
Because she knows how it goes. And they are going to be annoying. If they would sing it right, it would probably be fine. But as soon as she starts singing it, she's going to have to get to the end. And you can't sing too. Sometimes she lets her boyfriend Dave, who's autistic, sing, and I appreciate that because he does it wrong, but she loves him.
That's a Gestalt language processing thing, because it compares to the script inside your head. Edmund allows me to sing Rainbow Connection because he heard me sing it before Kermit, but anything else I can't sing.
Right. I understand this. So anyway, her mom is the TikToker, and she kind of, in my opinion, kind of abusively uses Abby as a prop to grow her own following. And she it's very hard to watch her. She's like Autism Mom 101. But she does this thing that I would like you to debunk or explain, or maybe it's the right thing, but whenever Abby is talking and she will answer with one of these like echolalic answers, that's like her most recent video, which humiliates Abby and then talks to her like a child and says things like, "What do we do instead, Abby? What's the right way to talk to people?" Is something
the right
good
way to talk to people. Oh God.
Right. So something good is happening, and she says, "Disney princesses get ice cream." I might have this a little wrong, but it's in the ballpark. And that's like a good, that means this is good. And everyone knows that means this is good. That's just like the cute little way that she says this is good. And I have no problem with it. But her mom makes her explain to this other kid in the car who seemed to be doing fine understanding it. I think he was also autistic.
Yeah.
She like sort of shames her and says, "Now, Abby, you think in categories. You don't think the way regular people do. You like jump to a category. So now what happens when you think in categories? What do you have to do?" And then Abby goes through some whole process, which I assume is I don't know if it's SLP or something, but where she has to like figure out what the category means and then realize ice cream is good and princesses are her and these are the categories, and then she's supposed to break it down and then say the right things and not speak in categories. Do you know the speak in categories phrase? What is this? Do you know about this?
No, I've never heard of that before.
I think it's
It
like,
seems like neurotypical bullshit, but go on.
right. I think it's trying to like deprogram
Yeah.
Gestalt language processing, but I'm like, what is wrong with thinking in category? What
Right.
seems to communicate the
And
idea
again,
perfectly well to me.
this is the thing, because a while ago in Autistic Connections, I posted a comparison of like a direct translation from French to English and how French dialect has a completely different structure of language.
Oh my God, I love that video.
Yeah,
Yes.
autistic people have a very different structure of language. We use the same words, but we think about concepts very, very differently. And when we talk to other autistic people, we tend to understand each other. But neurotypicals don't understand it because apparently of this categorization bullshit.
Right. But I think they do understand it. I just think they don't want to. Like it
Yeah.
makes you think differently. Like too much work
We
for
don't
you. Like
like different.
you already know what it means. Why does she have to do other work?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the thing. This is the thing that this is why we get thrown into quote unquote social skills groups and social skills training, because again, neurotypicals want us to be like them instead of acknowledging that we are different and accepting our differences, because it's colonialization bullshit.
Right. Like what you knew what it meant.
Yeah,
So what why would it have to be different since you knew exactly what it meant? If it
yeah.
needed to be different, if you didn't know what it meant, I could see.
Yeah, and this is the thing, because in autistic fiction, again, Han and Chewie speak completely different languages, but they understand each other. Chewie
Mm,
doesn't have to speak in Basic. Doesn't have to speak Wookiee. They or Shiriwook,
yeah.
if you're paying attention.
Nice.
Congratulations. Yeah. So anyway, but they understand each other well because they are friends and they accept each other. And this is how relationships should be.
Oh,
You
that's how you
accept.
talk? Great. I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Great. You don't
exactly.
have to do it my way. You can do it your way. I
Let
might
people
learn
be
something.
authentic.
Anyway, one of the other things Anne does wrong in a long list that make her feel like she's literally worried about going to hell because of this is that she's constantly moving, she's skipping, she's twirling, she's rocking on chairs,
Of
she's
course.
throwing herself on the ground in dramatic moments, and uh, the folks in town do not like this about her. So Avonlea is the town she lives in. Here is a quote about Anne.
Anne had certain spontaneous movements of her own, which were not quite in accord with Avonlea etiquette. When she flung herself on bed in despair, that's awesome. She was sternly reminded that ladies did not sprawl.
Oh my God. I always had to, I would get in trouble and have to write about how to be ladylike. That was a whole thing. Lady sprawl. I can prove it to you. Ready? Anne is a lady and sprawled.
This
Did
is the
it.
way.
Did it. Figured it out. The 1985 miniseries, Megan Follows was the one who played Anne, and she was doing proprioceptive stimming. I don't think she knows. Like you'll have to go back and watch it. I think she somehow figured out to stim because she
It,
stims through the whole show,
oh,
but I
okay. I
don't
didn't know if it
think
was like
she's
the good doctor doing this weird
eh,
mimicry or something. Or
yeah, but she comes to it organically, but I don't think Megan Fellows is autistic, but I think she somehow figured out from reading it that she was just a super stimmy kid. And she does the same thing with her voice. So she does a lot of vocal stimming, which is one of my main stimming patterns is all vocal stimming.
yeah,
And so when things are good, she sort of talks in this sing-songy voice, and when things are bad is where she gets much more like monotone,
yeah.
and you could see that as well.
I'm glad that was included. I like that.
Yeah, I don't think they nailed it, but it's definitely clear that there was an attempt.
An attempt was made.
Yes, exactly. She also, when she gets in trouble, when she gets like overwhelmed, um, she has meltdowns, which they blame on her being overly dramatic. And
Oh,
then her like mom character, Marilla, forces her to apologize. And Anne flatly refuses. She just shuts down, withdraws, stops speaking, absolutely, completely. And yeah, just does not play.
That is unfortunate.
So, yeah, so I think we see like meltdowns there. She's also very annoyed by the puffy sleeves on the dresses and flatly refuses to wear these dresses. And here is a lovely little autistic quote.
I'd rather look ridiculous when everybody else does that than plain and sensitive. Okay, take two. I'd rather look ridiculous when everybody else does than plain and sensible all by myself.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So
I'd
she's
rather
just
be
like,
plain and sensible.
I would rather be plain and sensible too. Agreed. So, yes. What else do I have for you? We talked about that. Oh, so when everyone's telling you all the time that you're doing it wrong, I was telling you she worried about going to hell.
I missed that. What?
Well, she was getting in trouble for like sprawling on the bed and for like being a bad girl.
You go to hell for sprawling?
Well, this is her thought, and she loops on this over and over.
Do you suppose I can ever be good enough to go to heaven if I don't have any imagination?
Yeah.
Oh, that is the essence of internalized ableism. Oh, yeah. God.
So it's interesting, right, that people love this so much. I mean, it is full of autistic like behaviors, but it's also full of very ableized ideas around it. She's good when she masks. She's bad when she stims. She's criticized all the time. She fails at masking and stands out. So over and over again in Anne of Green Gables, we see really the lesson that I'm sure Lucy Maud Montgomery got too, which is blend in, fit in. You will be much more liked if you do things the way we do them. And I think it's pretty interesting that that's what people gravitate towards.
Is this in the public domain now?
Oh, it must be, yeah. I mean, we probably really not like the films and things like that, but yeah. Do a rewrite?
We need to take the book and release an autistic annotated version.
Oh, that's such a good idea. We could do that with a bunch of with a bunch of books that are in
we'll have the Autistic Culture podcast series of autistic annotated classics.
I love that because really like so many people have requested this goes into among our most requested episodes.
Yeah.
And to me it does. I see the similarities, but basically, she just decides she has to be a good girl. Like the final scene is about her like putting away childish things.
C.S. Lewis would disagree with that.
What?
Oh, C.S. Lewis has that famous quote of, "When I reached 50 and became an adult, I put away my childish things, including my fear of looking childish."
I love that. Well, no, she just decides she's going to embrace the hardships of life. She's going to stop stimming. She's going to, I don't know if she ends up like, she's going to marry Gilbert, but she's going to do the things that ladies do. I think she's going to marry Gilbert. I don't know. She goes to college. I guess that's good.
Little houses on
but then then she decides she's going to go back to Green Gables, which she fucking hates and cannot contain her, and she's going to teach at the school. She chooses responsibility and family, who treated her like shit, over her own personal ambition.
That is unfortunate.
So I feel like it needs a rewrite. Like she stims, then she tells him to fuck off and stop buying children to do slave labor. Yeah. And then like she moves to California and gets a lesbian lover and makes erotic porn that is friendly to women who are choosing to participate or something. I went a bridge too far. But honestly, she doesn't break free. Why did you all want me to cover that? I don't like it. It's dark.
answer in the comments.
Okay.
And again, if you want an autistic annotated series of
yes,
classics,
put that in the comments.
yeah,
We could do
if
it.
you would read it, we'll make it, because
It might include porn. I think that way it'll sell. See what I mean? She leaves, she goes off to college, then she meets a girl, then they start like, what would they have been doing in 1910? Pictures? When does the daguerreotype? I feel like they make nudie pictures, but they're by women for women, and they establish a Lesbos
get in
colony.
with F.W. Murnau and erotic lesbians on the moon.
Yes, that's my whole plan. That's what I got. That's what I got for you.
And we close with The Entertainer being played to scenes of erotic lesbians on the moon.
I like it. Or chopsticks.
Yeah.
Could it be chopsticks? Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, Matt, that is Anne of Green Gables. I think we should watch the anime version because maybe they fixed it.
I hope so.
And it might give us some ideas for the annotated
because
book.
At the end, instead of returning, she gets a mecha and comes to annihilate with an enormous blazing sword. Yeah. Because life is better.
Yeah. Or it turns into Japanese tentacle anime porn. I don't know.
Also on the moon with F.W. Murnau to The Entertainer. So...
Anyway, on that note, what did you like about being autistic this week? Tell me something good. Tell me something juicy. What do you love about your
in my head,
autistic life? No.
We got some weird shit going on in there.
The red ponytails. Wow, right. It's a whole... Anyway. Yeah. Tell me something not pornographic. Bring us out so that we don't, we have to make the most of our
especially we're at an hour, we're at 66 minutes. My son... recently got into a little bit of an existential crisis because we moved into the new house a few months ago, but we haven't been back to the old house. And he likes to see pictures of the old house empty so that he knows that we've moved all this stuff. Because my plan was to move out while he was there so he could see it in person and see all this. But I took a ton of pictures when I moved out so he could see that everything is empty. He could see the process of packing up. He could see all of this and know it. But we had to drive past the old house and visit Bardstown. And because, again, we haven't been there in a long time, we went and got Arby's. And he really, really needed the VCR to be put up because the green clock on the front of the VCR is apparently extraordinarily important to him. And he was crying and having a meltdown, and he just kept saying green clock. And I was like, I thought that he meant a clock with a green faceplate, which is in his clock room. And he was like, no, green clock, green clock. And I was like, oh, you mean the VCR? And I went and opened the large box the VCR was in. And that became an immediate priority that we had to put up and hook up the VCR and set the time. So we had to find the remote control, had to find all the cables, hooked it up. And after that, he was just delighted. And now whenever he comes over to my house, the first thing he does is walk over and admire the VCR.
The green clock.
His green clock is where it should be. He chose where the green clock would be placed. He got to program the green clock with the remote control. Everything, the world is as it should be.
Just wait until daylight savings comes because that one's going to have to be set back or forward.
Yeah, he's going to get... I see it as a curse. He sees it as an opportunity to reset the time on something like 40 clocks in this house. So he is going to love that.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, listen, I am glad that you didn't tell him he was a terrible person for wanting clocks, and then he would have to be afraid of going to hell for being different and then eventually succumb to a life of misery.
Yeah. We celebrate autistic culture in this house.
Let's do that instead.
We celebrate hyper-focus. We celebrate monotropism. We celebrate special interests. And we celebrate being our unique selves.
So good.
This is the way.
We're going to soon celebrate that for our girl, Anne of Green Gables, who was one of us. You don't have to give up your life and be miserable to find acceptance. That was a terrible moral of that story. We can do better. We deserve better as autistic people. And we are giving you better right here. We're going to be back next week with another culture show. You can join us on Friday, and we're going to be talking about some important issues that you will care about. I don't know what they are, but we've probably recorded that one already, and I hope you enjoy it.
With our timey-wimey recording schedule, I have no idea what episode you'll be hearing next. If it already exists, if it will exist in the future.
It does. It's part 2. It's the Autistic Medical Needs Part 2.
Yeah, that you might need to listen to that.
Yeah, it was a good one, and it will be for you on Friday. So stay tuned. Enjoy the show. We will see you back here for another culture show next Tuesday. Meanwhile, please comment over on Substack. We hope to see you there.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to check out our advocacy episodes every Friday, where we explore important issues and share strategies for living your best, most authentically autistic life.
And for even more autistic culture, consider becoming a paid member for exclusive perks like Q&A calls live with Matt and I, a virtual writing circle, and our new Self-Defined Living course by Becca Laurie Hector.
Fun fact, it costs us about $8 for every minute you hear or see us on the podcast, but our member pricing is just $8 a month. What a bargain! Buy one, get 500 free. Seriously, if you could afford it, we would really appreciate your contribution. It makes this all possible.
And of course, the best way everyone can support what we're doing here is to rate, review, share, and subscribe on Substack or your favorite podcast app.
This is the way.